I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, and I had a mom and a dad and what seemed like a perfect childhood until when I was 6 years old, my dad left my mom. And this perfect family all of a sudden felt foreign and different to me. When I was in about 6th grade, my mom met a man, and it kind of went against everything she believed in, because she taught us that you didn't stay with a man until marriage, you didn't do anything like that. And when he came to my house the first day, on their first date, he never left. And it wasn't soon after that they got married, and soon after that that I started getting molested. I was molested from the age of 11 to 17. And that was so hard. It was during those years of my teen years that I was trying to escape, and I found everything from drugs to men to skipping school, staying out late, partying. I always had to be the drunkest. I always had to be the loudest, the one with all the boyfriends, the one who could do the most. And that led me down a path of destruction. And so in my 20s, I found myself going down a road that no one should ever go down. And I ended up getting addicted to drugs. The recreational use that I did when I was a teenager was no longer just a hobby or just for fun. I was addicted to heroin and crack cocaine. And I spent many of my years on street corners as a prostitute, making ends meet to feed my habit and my addiction. And not just mine, but my boyfriend's as well. And I did that for many, many years. And I went in and out of programs and treatment centers and psych wards, and I was hearing voices. It was just really, my life was just really demonic and controlled by darkness. And when I was in my mid-20s, I went to a treatment program called the Hoving Home, and it was a faith-based branch off of Teen Challenge. And there I found my relationship with God. It was the first time ever that I had felt like I was saved, like I had a testimony of my own. It wasn't my mom's or my dad's from when I was a kid. Like I actually met Jesus for the first time in my life. And I wish that that was it. Unfortunately, I left that program. A boyfriend of mine prior had gotten cancer, and I went to go take care of him, and I stayed with him until his last breath. I couldn't deal with the pain, and I had a relapse. I did eventually get clean again and had my children. And that was when I met my husband, and we started our family together. And through those years, my husband struggled for a good while to get clean. And then eventually I gave in too. And it wasn't until he was diagnosed with MRSA, it was through his internal organs, and his body was shutting down. He had lesions in his lungs and on all over his body. And they didn't think he was gonna live. And so he went into the hospital, and I thought, this is my chance to get clean. It was only a few-month relapse, but it was bad. And I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe if God could do it back then, he could do the same thing now. And I just had this glimmer of hope and faith that I could be where I was before. And my mom had met a new man, and thank goodness he's a great man. And they moved out to Utah. And so that's how I ended up out here. Me and my 3 children came out. My husband ended up getting clean and living through his sickness, and came to follow us 6 months later, and we reunited our family. We haven't looked back. That was almost 7 years ago. I am so grateful to even be alive today. When I moved to Utah, I went into a 12-step program because it was all I knew. I knew I had a relationship with God, but I thought that you just did that because the world did that. And so I did it, and it kept me clean for a long time. But what I found was I was still miserable. I was still empty. I was still void. I had no purpose. And so I left a religion that I was seeking to find acceptance from my family, and I left it, and I decided to go back on that journey with Jesus Christ that I knew that I had before in my life. And when I did that, everything changed. I went to a local church here, and they introduced me to a revival that was coming into town. It was a tent revival in the middle of the winter. And I went there, and I met Pastor Aaron and Pastor Emily, and my life began to change. I was delivered. I was baptized for the first time, with it being my choice, in 40-degree weather in one of those basins that the horses drink out of. I was dripping wet, freezing cold, but so filled with the Spirit that I couldn't even contain my joy. It was the most exhilarating, freeing feeling I have ever experienced in my life. And since that day, almost 2 years ago, I have continued to walk with the Lord, and I have been so empowered and healed and free. And honestly, it's all because of Jesus Christ. The world can only give you so much and offer you so much, but Jesus Christ offers it all for you. He paid it all for you. And all he wants is us to just come to him. And so, you know, today, actually, I want to say like what I was back then to who I am today. What I was back then was a drug-addicted prostitute that had lived a life full of abuse and pain. And who I am today is a child of God who loves herself, her family, her children, can serve in the community as a leader in her church, prophesies boldly, and testifies of Jesus Christ everywhere she goes. And I don't care how crazy I look. I love the Lord, and no one can take that away from me. I am Gigi, and I have been revived.